All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? I hope you're having a great Friday afternoon or evening or possibly Saturday morning, depending on where you're watching from. I got on this morning or this afternoon um, and Daryl was in the chat like 20 minutes before the start of the show at what was it like 5:45 his time in the morning, amped up and ready to go. So thanks for watching all the way from New Zealand, Daryl. We
He
appreciate you.
he is a self-proclaimed early riser, and that is early.
Yeah. Thanks for the kudos on the jingle. That's from Stream Beats. He's got a whole album of beats that you can use for YouTube, and they're like retro gaming themed, which obviously is kind of like my theme that I'm going for in my office. I've even got my Game Boy shirt on today, feeling very Nintendo-y.
That's so
So I
weird
appreciate that.
because as it was playing, I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh, I'm getting ready to play like Ninja Gaiden," and I was having like flashbacks to like my NES days. So I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
not the only one that has that thought when the jingle comes on.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm getting into garage sale season now in the United States. So it's like one hobby that I have way too many hobbies, but one hobby that I have is retro gaming. So upstairs in our loft, I last year I bought a 27-inch Sony Trinitron CRT television, and underneath that I've got everything from the NES up through the Wii, so the GameCube, the N64, Super Nintendo. They're all hooked up all the time. And then I went around to garage sales and bought all of the PlayStation generations. So I've got PS1, 2, and 3, and an Xbox 360. This year, I'm hoping to go around to garage sales and buy all of the Sega systems. So the Master System, the Genesis, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, and put together, I don't know, like a dozen retro gaming consoles. So I'm
I can
excited it's
walk
finally
to a
spring.
classic video game store. It's like a 10-minute walk from my house. It's called Video Game World,
Yeah.
and they have like all of that stuff. I could basically fulfill your Sega wishes in like an
Yeah.
afternoon because they have like all of that in there.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of retro gaming stuff, here in Kansas City too, but it's like you pay, high dollar for it. It's a lot more exciting to be like,
Yeah,
go
the
to a
garage
garage
sale
sale and,
finds.
"Hey, you got any old games you wanna get rid of?" And then they, like, pull out some box of just, hundreds of dollars worth of games, and they're like, "Ah, I don't know, 20 bucks." So,
So
gets my
I
blood
actually
pumping.
have my original NES, SNES,
Mhm.
N64. I still have most of like my original games. Managed to like somehow keep those over the years. They're actually in the
Yeah.
in the closet right there. So
See, you
I
gotta get, like, a free old CRT
yeah.
TV, throw your back out trying to get it in your house. The one we got is, like, 100 pounds, and me and my wife carried it up the stairs to the loft. She's like, "I'm never moving this, you're not getting a bigger TV."
Nope, nope. It's locked
You'll
in.
see her in the chat, she's saying, that you had a big Trinitron growing up. We had when I went to college, my parents, like, went from a CRT to a flat screen TV, like a plasma in the early 2000s. So I took the 36-inch Sony down to college with me, and it took 5 of us to carry it in the house because it was over 200 pounds with a 36-inch one,
Yeah.
and, we ended up leaving it with the house, and I kinda regret that, but it's funny you mentioned the aquarium in the chat because, I ran, like, in college, I ran this venue basically that was an old abandoned building in the university for, like, punk bands to come play shows and stuff. I kinda ran that whole thing, and in the back, it was the old art building. There were dozens and dozens of old Apple IIe's, old, like, Macintosh computers, Lisas, things like that, and we thought about like taking some of those and like gutting them out, and there was a trend back then where you could like get plexiglass made to fit inside, so you'd have like an old retro Apple computer with an aquarium in it, with live fish. I thought about doing that. That takes me back to college.
Should go and talk to Andrew Connell. He's got quite the custom aquarium and
Yeah.
fish setup. You guys kind of have a meeting of the minds and like come in, like all of his experience running some of the automation and things like that on it, and you could come in with like the Tritantron aquarium.
Yeah, that would be cool. I've got a little CRT back here, the little screen that I'm pointing at. That's a tiny little CRT. I want to replace that with I'm looking to get one of those iMac G3s that's like the
Mhm.
colorful
Yeah.
iMac. I want to replace that and figure out a way to get audio and video input to it so I could turn that into like a retro gaming monitor. I think that would be a lot of fun. But enough about that, talking about the past and retro, 20 plus years ago. We are here actually to talk about new stuff and things that are emerging in technology. So the topic for today was to deep dive into the new Microsoft Teams. And some people might have been like, well, what's new about Microsoft Teams? You might have seen, what was it, 2 weeks ago now? It was like 2 Tuesdays ago, or maybe last Tuesday, they announced that the new Teams is here. And what that means is it's the new desktop client. Some people are calling it Teams 2.0. I think technically it's Teams 2.1 is the versioning for it, but it's completely re-architected from the ground up desktop application for Microsoft Teams if you run Windows. So we thought we would go through today taking a look at like how to get it, what benefits it can provide, what's the current state of it. So we're Microsoft MVPs, so naturally we have kind of a positive slant on Microsoft technology, but just out front,
Constructive
Dan from
criticism.
Twitter was every time I was posting about it, he's like, it's not even ready yet. It's like, I know it is not ready for, enterprise wide. We're not rolling it out to our 400,000 users, but as technologists, we should start playing with it, understand what the gaps are. And we're going to show a lot of those gaps, the things that you can't do today. And we're going to kind of end out with, what our thoughts around like when should you switch and start adopting, like, depending on the kind of person you are, maybe you want to start looking at it. Maybe you want to let things simmer for a little bit longer. But we'll talk about all of that cool stuff today. And Andy just put in the chat. This is the blog post. You have that blog up, don't you, Andy?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. Let me throw your screen up there, and we can kind of scroll through like what does it include. You've probably digested this a little bit more than me. So if you want to talk to that.
Yeah, so I've sat in on a few different announcement meetings around this. There were some in the Microsoft partner communities, and then there was
Hmm.
some internal stuff, and then there's some of the public release, and that's what we're actually seeing here. This is the public release blog. The main things, the biggest takeaways, and it was, I think we had like three big bullet points that we kind of advertised for this particular session. Is number
Hmm.
one, it's re-architected on the back end, so they say that it's faster, simpler, and more flexible. The main takeaway from that is that it is faster, significantly faster. They've got some side by side comparison videos here. I'll play this in just a second, but it is significantly faster, and even getting hands on with it, it's faster. And part of that's because they're moving away from Electron, and I think they're rebuilding a lot of it based off of like React. And
Hmm.
so it's not consuming nearly as many resources on your local PC as it was before. So things load way faster. We'll play the video now.
I know I'll look forward to that faster booting on all of my virtual machines because I've got like 6 VMs that
Yeah.
auto launch Teams, and it takes forever because they're like really CPU constrained.
So you can see like the new teams has been done for quite a while. 9 seconds to boot. The classic teams ended up taking like
Mhm.
22 seconds. Um, they mentioned, as they're moving through here, just some of the channel switching being faster, scrolling being faster, joining a meeting. I've seen this. This is significantly faster. We'll demo this today. It's really quick. So that's a huge thing. And then the memory usage. 50% memory reduction. And I've seen a
Mhm.
lot of this actually in practice, which is really cool. So definitely re-architected from the back end. And then some other things, more flexible, and it's smarter. So the smarter thing is one of the things that I'm really excited about, and that's for those of us that have to work in multiple tenants and work with multiple Microsoft accounts. So, like, if
Hmm.
I'm, Daryl working with a whole bunch of different clients, I'm probably logged into more than one Microsoft tenant at any particular time. And switching back and forth between those for the last few years has been painful to say the least. Now, multiple tenant support, not only with one email account, but with multiple email accounts. So I can actually switch back and forth between my various tenants.
Hmm.
And I'm also going to be able to receive notifications across tenants. And when they say smarter, if I'm going to join a meeting and I'm in the wrong tenant, it's going to suggest or auto switch me over to the right tenant so that I get the best experience in the meeting.
Yeah, I
So we'll
definitely
demo
want to
some of that.
check that out
Yeah.
in this live stream. Tom put that in there. I echo. I'm think the third person that this is my favorite feature as well. The multi-tenant switching. Like what
Yeah.
I do personally is I live half of my life over in the Microsoft tenant because of like Teams Tap and like all the other stream advisors and stuff that I'm in. So I have to run that Edge browser all the time, and being able to like gather up those notifications in the same tenant, switch back and forth. I'm really looking forward to that. Unfortunately, I'm a Mac user, so I won't be able to enjoy this quite yet. But we'll talk about that. But yeah, as a consultant, I can easily imagine that you might have half a dozen tenants at any given time, and now you'll get like a unified activity list, so you won't miss things
Yeah.
because you were in the wrong tenant.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
And this is something subtle that you have to experience, but you can be in a meeting in another tenant, get a chat in like your main tenant and participate in that chat while staying in the meeting. Before, if
Mm,
you tried to react or respond or anything, it would switch, or you'd have to
yeah.
exit out of the meeting. Now you can stay in the meeting and then still participate in your main tenant if you need. So it's
You know,
definitely smarter.
something we need to test too is can you can you switch in the meeting? Because you were saying like you could participate in the chat. I don't think this is possible, but I'm wondering if you would be able to like participate in the channel chat, because like that's one problem I have is like some of the Microsoft meetings I attend are in channels, so the chat doesn't load and I have to like go to the browser to, view
Yeah.
the chat. I wonder if that works across channels or if it'll just be like, chats under the chat tab. So I'll be surprised if it works across channels.
Yeah. So we'll test it out, see how that goes. And then, I mean, this kind of goes without saying, it's new. So the UI has been updated. That's kind of subtle. They didn't really make huge changes to the user interface and like where knobs and switches go, but some things are a little bit different. Like in channels,
Hmm.
things flow from the top to the bottom now versus scrolling to the bottom to get the most recent stuff. So like channels being flip flopped, up is down, down is up. So that's something to kind of get used to. But outside of that, they just kind of walk through a few of the things in the blog post, and then there's a link to a bunch of separate articles. We'll post these in here in the chat for those that are joining live. There's a whole breakdown of the new teams, and this one is really good because if you scroll down, they have this ongoing checklist. It's kind of a parody list. No, it's
Mm,
it's high level. It doesn't get into
yeah.
the details. We're going to get into a lot of the details, but it's high level and it tells you what's currently available in the new teams versus what you had in the classic. Not everything is one to one yet. There's a lot of features that they have to roll out. Those are coming in the fall, hopefully this year, and we don't have to
Yeah,
wait too
yeah,
long
which
for
fall?
that. But they keep this up to date. When I checked on this 2 days ago, when we were kind of prepping for this,
Mhm.
this was last updated on April 7th. You can see now it's been updated on April 12th, so they must have updated it right after we met the other day. Made a couple of additions there, and there's some links inside of that. Um, if you are an admin, there's some things that you need to know administration wise about being able to roll this out. So they get you covered there. So this is definitely one I would bookmark. Again, I'm gonna put that in the chat for those of you that are joining live today. You should see that across all of our various channels.
Nice.
But go ahead and bookmark that. Come back to it because they are updating this and then pushing a lot of us toward this. And then there's a handful of other articles they've got. Try the new teams. the getting started with it, the instructions on how to do that. We'll show you all this live here. And then the new Teams desktop client, this is learn.microsoft. So this is where we based a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Some of the things that like what features are still missing, for instance. We're going to go through and talk a good bit about that. This article actually references that, so we'll get that out there for you. And one more, hold on, let me paste this in. There you go. And then here's another blog article for it where they've got some screenshots built in, some of the same videos. There was the announcement portion of it, and this is the one that's actually in the tech community, and a few more bullet points there. So a couple things to mention about this. This is in the preview program. So you do need to be in the it's public preview / early access as it's transitioning. So it is part of that preview program, and it currently is for Windows only. So you do need to be on Windows in order to use this. But before we dive into the deep dive, let me take a moment to introduce all of my Mac users to Parallels. So I've been a longtime user of VMware, and a couple months ago, Microsoft and Parallels announced a Parallels entry that supports Windows on ARM. So the new Mac devices are using the M1 and M2 chips, and those are based off of an ARM architecture. So they have a version of Windows 11 set up for ARM. You can download and install Parallels with the Windows 11 ARM package. It took me less than 15 minutes to get Parallels, the Windows 11, downloaded and installed. The whole thing in less than 15 minutes. This thing on a Mac with an ARM architecture boots up in like 20 seconds total. And then it runs like seamlessly side by side with my Mac. Now you get there's a 14-day trial to test it out, and then you can pick your plan, but you can basically pay like $100 for like a lifetime version of it. That's what I did, because as soon like I knew like 3 days into testing it, I was like, all right, this is great. So I went ahead and installed Windows 11 on Parallels, and now I have the new Teams client running in my Windows 11 machine, and it's already booted. It's done. I didn't even get the sentence out of my mouth, and I'm already into Teams, and it's running. So for those of you on Mac, check out Parallels and the Windows 11 there package. I personally think it's worth $100. If I had an affiliate link, I'd throw that out there for all of you. But it's pretty awesome. So I'll be demoing in that today.
Nice. And I use Proxmox for my virtualization. So I've got servers down in my basement. I'm just RDP'd over to this one. But I think the way for us to kick this off is I have not switched to the new Teams client yet for Megan Bowen. So I want to flip that switch, see how long it takes to kind of get over and situated on there. But Tom had a really good point as well. The Teams policy that controls preview has a separate toggle for this. So the first question to answer for those who are watching today or later on in the future is, how do I get this on for myself or for like a pilot group of people? As you mentioned, Andy, you do have to have Teams public preview currently. And the way that you turn that on is you go to admin.teams.microsoft.com. So we're going to go there first, and we're going to set up a Teams update policy. So if you go in, you're logged in as an administrator, Teams admin or global admin, you go over to the Teams section right here. And then under Teams update policies, you've got the one that's just global, which is the default for the entire organization. I don't recommend changing that one. But what I did is created a new one called public preview. So you can go add a new policy, and then you can take that and you can turn on public preview. So make that allowed or enabled. And then that second toggle Tom was talking about is the new Teams client. So you can let users choose. You can say it's not enabled at all, or you can say Microsoft controlled. Because right now, if Microsoft controls it, the toggle is available, but it is turned off by default. So you can go back and forth. Now, later on, if they decide to, force the public preview into the new Teams client and you have it to Microsoft controlled, what that means is then it will be toggled on for your users that are in public preview. So it's important to know what you're doing between, like, if you want the users to choose on their own or if you want just Microsoft to take care of it. I just want to ride Microsoft's roller coaster. I have it set right now to Microsoft controlled. And then I scoped this. So you want to select that and then assign users. I scoped this to Megan Bowen in my organization. So that's how you're going to kind of do the pre work to get this available to your users. And then when they go in, they're basically going to go into the about section and then they're going to turn on public preview right there. So they go to the dots about public preview, and you'll know you're in public preview if it says EA right there, which is early adopter or early access. I don't know which one it stands for, but if it says EA at the top, then you see this little switch. So I want to flip that on and see, like, what does it look like for the user the first time they turn it on a Windows device. So I'm going to set a stopwatch just to see how long it takes to kind of like switch over to that new world. And I'm going to do it right now. So it comes up, says get it now. Okay, great. So it's downloading and it's going to automatically open when it's done. So I'm at like what, 12 seconds because I clicked it a little bit early and it popped up with that extra thing. But the download should also be smaller because it's using more native controls like the web view functionality, things like that. So it's not downloading like this couple 100 MB Electron application. It's I heard, what is it, like 60 megs or 70 megs, something like that. It's quite a bit smaller. Okay, so it is flipped over and we're in the preview now. And I'll wait till it loads up. And this is also on a VM that has 2 cores and 8 gigs of RAM is what I'm running. And these are old like Xeon processors as well. So it's loading up here, flipped over. I want to wait till I see my chats and then I'll stop the clock. Super exciting to watch. But I want to show it live, just to be like, okay, what's the first run experience? So when that came up, I stopped it at 1minute and 17 seconds to basically flip over to that new client. Things are loading in still. It's telling me I can schedule things for later. And now I can click around. I can go to my Teams. I can go to my calendar, all of that stuff. So that's pretty good. I imagine that it's going to kind of settle some things down in the background and be running, but a little bit over a minute on an old computer, I'm ready to go with the new Teams. Now I'm curious, what's it like to flip back and forth, because it's not going to have to do the download this time. So I want to flip back and forth and see how long that particular thing takes. So we're going to turn it off and I'm running the clock right now. See how long it takes to flip back to the old version. So it's relaunching that. You're getting that kind of, probably about 20-second load that was in that video that Andy showed. We're at 16 seconds now. And then I want to flip back to it and see how much faster it is on that side. Okay, so now I see my chats loaded in, and that was 28 seconds to flip back to the old version. Maybe I stopped it a little bit early, so maybe about 30 seconds. And then now we'll flip back to the new version, see how fast that is. Daryl, I hear the dot matrix printer starting up. No, I need that window, that America Online, welcome to come up. There we go. Okay, so flipping to the new version was 24 seconds. So, it's about the same time to go back and forward. Now, that one that was like 9 seconds, that was like a cold boot of the Teams client. that wasn't flipping from one version to the other. So I kind of wanted to illustrate like what that was. It was 24 seconds to go to the new version, about 30 seconds to go to the old version. So just something to think about if you have to flip back and forth, because I think as we're going to find, as we start like kind of clicking through some of these things and finding out what we can't do, you might be flipping back and forth fairly frequently, or you might be doing a life hack that our friend Caruana mentioned in one of the MVP meetings, that she said she likes to run the old client, the web version in the background, because she does a lot of the things that like you can't do yet inside of the new client. So it might be easier for you also to just have it in the web version for now, if you've got to like switch back and forth. And we'll talk about some reasons why you might be the type of person who's not quite ready to switch to the new teams yet. So, but that is installing the new client and getting it like up and running. What's the first thing we should check out? I
Daryl
guess
had
the
a
next thing to talk about
question.
is updates, right?
Yeah, well, Daryl had a question. I
Go
just want
ahead.
to address this real quick. So he was asking about the Parallels version that I mentioned, and I just want to
Okay.
bring this up to the screen. So, is this new? Yeah, the Parallels version of Windows 11 is new. This was announced in February. I put a link in the chat window to it, but it is an official Windows 11 ARM build. There was one previously from Microsoft that was done through the Insider program. This is an official ARM build, and you can, when you purchase Parallels, you get it all. And this is the pricing on that. I told you a minute ago it was $100. They're actually doing a spring sale. It's $20 cheaper, and it's like $80. That's totally worth it to be able, for those of us
That's
on
pretty good.
Mac, to be able to completely virtualize Windows. And there's a couple of different modes that Parallels supports. This Having used VMware for a really long time, I'm blown away by what Parallels has been able to do, and the performance is off the charts.
And which
So
version are you on? You're on standard?
I'm on the standard Parallels
Okay.
Desktop Standard
Yeah.
Edition.
Nice. So another thing Daryl said is now close the client, see how fast that is, because that's the thing that's improved. So I quit out of the client, and I'm going to launch it again here and hit start on my stopwatch. So it's running. We'll see when I see my chats pop up. So we got that little bit of animation. I'm also on an older computer, so keep that in mind. And it's loaded up almost there. Okay, so 23 seconds for that one. So it's only like 1 second less. But yeah, your mileage may vary. I think if I went over to my Dell computer that's like, an i7, and I launched that version over here. So like let's bring that one up, see how that one goes. So Teams. Let's see what this one does, where it's like an actual physical computer. And that one is going to be now. Oh, wait, that's the new client. That's the consumer client. That was wrong. Teams. There it is. Work preview. We're going to stop, reset, and click. There we go. So yeah, that was 5 seconds on that one to load up from a cold boot. So that's pretty good.
So let's bring mine up then. Let's try it there.
Oh yeah, through Parallels.
All right, so this is in Parallels. It's already there.
On a M1 Max?
Yeah.
That's what you're running? Yeah. That's pretty good. So yeah, on a 2-3-year-old Dell, it's like 5 seconds. That's pretty dang good too. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so yeah, the other thing before we delve into like the individual features and kind of start walking through that table is what do the updates look like? So there was a question about that on Reddit, because they're like, hey, if I go over here to my my thing, if I go over here and I click on settings, there's no like check for updates here anymore. If I go into like settings right here at the top, I don't see anything about checking for updates. So there was kind of a question about that on Reddit. And I think Andy might have brought that up, or I'll bring it up over here because I want to give credit where credit's due. These guys on the Microsoft Teams subreddit, they were talking about it actually gets push notifications instead. So if I bring that up, I've got a picture of what it looks like. What you're going to see if there's an update available is up at the top right here next to your picture, you'll see a update button that kind of shows. So if I go back to this, it'll be up in this area right here where you have that white space. That's how you'll know there's an update. And you don't have to manually update. If you like quit it for some reason or you reboot your computer, the next time you start Microsoft Teams, it'll apply that update that it's waiting for. So you don't really have to manage, checking for updates quite as closely if you don't want to care about that. So that's good to know. Andy, were you showing something on your side?
I was pulling in my notebook desktop to get our checklist set up.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. So I think the big thing to show first is multi-tenant support. That was the thing that I'm most excited about. You said you're most excited about. Tom, Daryl, they're all talking about it. So with the multi-tenant support, what we've done is Andy is a guest in my MVP tenant, and I also invited Megan Bowen to it as well, so we can kind of show like the flip back and forth. So Andy right now, he's in his own MVP tenant.
Yep.
Looking at his own stuff. He was in Collab More, which is my MVP tenant. And you saw how fast that was to flip back and forth. So if you get, a notification, you need to switch to it. That's how fast it was. He just did it right then and there. If I go as Megan, I'm going to flip over to the other tenant and I'll mention Andy while he's in his home tenant, and we'll kind of see like, what does that look like with the notification coming in? So if I go into my teams and I'm going to start a new post here, and I'm going to mention Andy in that. So Andy, oh my gosh, this is the first time in this tenant. So it's like wanting to give me advertisements basically about what I can do. So Andy, I can mention him and say, ding dong, ringing a doorbell. So if I do that, I post that, then he gets the notification immediately through that unified system. He gets the toast popped up that tells him that he was mentioned in 365 Deep Dive General, which is in another tenant than he's currently in right now. So that's what you're showing on screen right there. And you click on it, it actually opens up in a pop-out window, and it's a channel, not a one-on-one chat. It's a channel, and he's able to post back without getting out of the flow of work in his home tenant. So like that's pretty powerful. I think that's really nice. Yeah, and he just posted a GIF back. I'm able to see that. So what GIF did you send? Let me click on it. Nice. High five. Okay, cool. So that's that. Now, can you show the activity bell at the top and see if it like pulled that in from the feed? So that's going to be your home tenant feed.
Right.
But if you go to the top right next to the tenant name, you're going to notice that there's a little person with a bell icon. So if I switch over to my view, because I can zoom in up here, you can see that little icon, a person with a bell. That is going to be your activity in other organizations that are not your home one. So that toast notification that he had pop in, other chats and notifications you get from these other tenants, they're going to stack up in this section in kind of their own little area, separate from your home activity feed, if that makes sense. So that's the thing there. And then also Tom just pointed out a good way to visually see where you are in the world is that top corner, it will show the tenant name that you're currently in. So right now I'm in Collabmore. My home tenant is Contoso. So when I switch to Contoso, you see it, it'll pop in here up at the top. It's logging in as Megan. There's Contoso. So you can kind of visually see where you are in the world. And see,
You,
I've got an activity bell at the top. And that's because I was mentioned in this other channel and then I flipped away from it. So it's in the other account.
Tom was also pointing out, let me pull the message up here, but he's also pointing out, let me go to my screen. So up here, we can see, like, I was pointing out the bell icon where we were. And that's my Andy tenant right over here. But if you look down here, it's telling me that this is coming from Collabmore. So it even tells me in the pop-up window where
Mhm.
that activity is associated with. So at a glance, we know it's not in the tenant that I'm normally in.
Yeah. Yep. So that's good to know. And then Tom also said, it sounds like Tom has used this a lot so far. He's like right in there. That pop up, pop out window applies also to meeting chats. So you can get those across the tenant no matter like where you're at. I'm really excited, honestly. Like I know we're like nerding out about something that shouldn't be a big deal because this is like it should have always been this easy. But I'm kind of geeked out about the fact that like I hopefully won't have to care what state I'm in anymore. That's been a big hurdle that I've dealt with for like 4 years. You
So
know? So
let's just briefly geek out on that just a little bit. So we've been on the mobile client for a while, and the mobile client, whether you're on iOS or Android, has supported multi-tenant environments and multi-tenant switching. So that's
mhm,
been there for a while. But I think Microsoft's thinking with this and with just Microsoft 365 tenants as a whole, they were walled gardens. That's how they were originally designed. Like, and this goes back to Teams development in 2016, but this goes back to like just the Office 365 online environment, 10 years ago. They were designed as walled gardens for you and your information. They had that
mhm,
security boundary, and they did not anticipate that organizations were going to want to work cross tenants. That just wasn't the architecture that they were envisioning at the time. Things have changed over the years, and now they're realizing that organizations, through things like mergers, acquisitions, and even divestitures, if that's the right word, are needing flexibility. It's not cost effective for organizations to migrate their content out of one tenant to another every time a new organization's acquired, or two companies come
mhm.
together. It's a big lift and shift to do that. And the point I'm getting at is we are now entering in a world where I think we're going to see more organizations that are multi-tenant. So you might have like a prime kind of home tenant, and then you might have
Mhm.
satellite tenants to go along with that. For those of you that are familiar with SharePoint hub sites, it's going to be, I think, kind of a similar thing. Like your tenant's now associated with this other tenant, and that's the home tenant. And now we're a big, happy organization. Oh, acquisition, we're going to get spun off onto this other company over here. Okay, so change our association. And so with some of what I think they're doing with teams now is it's catching up to some of what the real world scenario is, that we work in more than one environment. We work in more than one tenant. You and I and some others here
Mhm.
that are joining us today, we participate in Microsoft calls. So we join the Microsoft tenant either through the MVP community or through the partner programs that they have. So we have to switch over there and we have to do some work. But like
Yeah.
our day to day, we're working in multi-tenant environments. I know my organization is now 3 companies merged together over the last year and a half, and going through all the ins and outs of trying to do guest access and B2B and shared channels and multi-tenant collaboration. Like I think this is here to stay. So they've addressed it. It's just taken a little while to figure out some of that architecture and the way to make this work. But I'll tell you what I've seen so far and what we've tested and like, what I've seen about this program as it's rolled out in teams. I'm really, really impressed with what they've been able to do. It's just huge leap forward. And I think it's really going to help.
Yeah, it's been really nice.
And geek out.
Being able to like just that unified notification. So we were talking about some stuff internally in my day job about like, living in two different worlds, and this promise of like a unified activity would have helped a lot of that, theoretical discussion that we've been having inside of our organization. Now, I think to shift gears from the multi-tenant switching to something that is a little bit less earth-shattering or exciting is something that's going to take an adaptation.
Yeah, sorry.
Go
one
ahead.
more thing on
Is there something
multi-tenant.
else?
Yeah, there's one more thing we've got to point out. So
What's that?
when I was switching from Andy's tenant to your tenant, I was using the same email address. That's my upskill email address. So I was using that email address to switch back and forth. I can switch over to a completely separate email address and a completely separate tenant just like that. Like this completely separate demo tenant, it's not connected to any of the ones that we were just looking at. I'm able to switch over and be completely logged in as another user. And just like that, bam.
It's the internal term for that is what? MTMA, multi-tenant, multi-account as well. So it's not only guest access. That's really good to point out. Yeah. So something that is less exciting, in my opinion, is the new channels. Whenever you switch over to the new client, you're going to notice the first time I clicked on the Teams tab, it tells me channels got a makeover. So what's up with that? This is something that I think is going to be a good thing, especially if you come from the Yammer world or Facebook or like any of these other kind of community type of platforms where your publisher, the thing that you actually type in, is at the top of it rather than the bottom. That's the shift that Teams channels is moving to. And not to be an apologist for Microsoft, but I think once we adapt to this, I think it's probably going to be an okay thing, if not a good thing, because actually the fact that it's in a different place gets you from, I'm going from a chat area where I'm chatting up in the chat, menu up here at the top, to I'm going to where my communities are, or I'm going to where my teams are, as the kind of, you're getting out of like the chat based thing. You're putting a little bit more thought into it because your audience is a little bit broader in a team's channel. So they've moved that, as the pop-up says, they've moved it from the bottom to the top right there. And then on the next little tab here, it also tells you that one benefit is you can pop out a channel conversation now, which is something I don't believe we could do before. So if I've got right here at the top, Diego, I want to see that thread in its own little window, I can click pop out conversation right there at the top, and it pops out that particular thread into its own area right there. So I can kind of keep that over to the side, and then I can navigate somewhere else inside of Teams to kind of go back and forth between the windows and kind of craft my response until I get Copilot and I have that just crafted everything for me. But yeah, so the poster at the top now, it's going to take some getting used to. Also, as Tom mentioned here, they by default need a subject. So, or it's asking for a subject. Now you can have no subject if you want to. You don't have to put a subject, but it's kind of encouraging you. Who is it? I think Matt Wade is a big fan of this, as well as Lori and Strant. I've seen them advocate on Twitter about every channel message thread should have a subject, kind of like organize your stuff so that as you're scrolling through, you can, kind of get what the gist of that thread is about. So Microsoft's leaning into that a little bit by saying, hey, we're not going to bury the subject anymore. It's going to be right up front when you start crafting a new top level thread.
In training, when
Mhm.
we teach people about the posts inside of channels, we always bring it back to an email. Like, you're trying to move off of maybe email based conversations and bring that conversation into Teams, into a channel, so that it
Mhm.
lives side by side, messages, content, and maybe even like meetings. You can do all of that inside of a channel. You can't send an email without a subject line. It should be the same thing here. Like, if
Mhm.
you've got a thread of conversation going, just like an email, it needs to have a subject line so that people know what they're replying to.
I know. I feel like we're going back in time a little bit because, like, in before the pandemic, in like 2018, 2019, when I was teaching Teams classes, I was the same way. I was like, hey, Teams is going to be an email killer and all that. I kind of feel like they're almost like so late to the party on this because, like, it, when they were attacking the email killer thing, that was the time to talk about subjects and make that the default. But yeah, I think it's encouraging a best practice, which is good. I do like that we've got kind of the expanded format bar right here. So in the old Teams client, you had just the basics, but now when you're in a channel, which you're going to put more thought into crafting your top level because there's a bigger audience, it gives you all of the tools that you need without having to go to the advanced formatting menu. So if you need a block quote for like a code snippet right here, or an actual block quote, if you need to mark the importance a different way, those types of things are available now at the top without having to do another click to get into it, which I think is a good thing, for sure. And then I want to see what's behind here. Okay, so when you hit post, there's the little dropout right there. What that is hiding is your reply moderation. So you're allowing everybody to reply, or you can just allow moderators to reply. So that's behind that little flyout right there. And then this little icon next to the post button is what type of post this is. Should just be like a standard post. But if you want to make it an announcement, you don't have to start over. You just convert it to an announcement. And then that gives you like a headline with a background image and that type of stuff. So you don't lose what you were typing in your draft if you're like, oh crap, I want to make this into an announcement instead. So, um, yeah, and you can add what is that? A horizontal rule? Yeah, horizontal rules, all those kind of more advanced things. Personally, what I would use is like the bullets and the numbers more than that. You also got some like formatting and stuff like that.
Let's
Um,
do quick comparison, because
Other
when I
things,
first
yeah.
saw this, the first thing that I thought of with up is down, number one, I thought of the Pirates of the Caribbean when Jack, like, everybody thinks he's going crazy. He's running side to side on the boat and he flips it upside down. Up is down. That was the first thing. But when I saw the actual user interface, it immediately called back to Yammer. And so, just briefly, I just want to like pull that up and address that real quick. So, like, this is,
Mhm,
I'm sorry, Viva Engage. This is Viva Engage
mhm,
in Teams, and wait, there's some similarities with it. Like, not all of the same UI, but it's top to bottom, just like Viva Engage. Message. When you click in, the box automatically expands. They did brand it differently enough that you're in Viva Engage, versus like if
mhm,
I were in um, a Teams channel and I go to post, like, I still see all of my teams in the left hand navigation and I see what's going on over here. But I did want to point that out. There are some similarities when you initially start, with kind of like the box just collapse, it expands when you go into it, and then you start typing your message. But they did
mhm.
differentiate the user interface enough that I know I'm clearly in Viva Engage versus like maybe inside of a team and inside of a channel. And then just to compare that, going to like chat. So when I go in here and like I work with a chat, let me just do a new one. This interface is essentially the same. So this one hasn't been updated. And we'll talk more about that in just a
Mhm.
little bit. But now we've kind of got the full circle of like all the different places where we might be starting
Yeah.
conversations.
Another thing that helps, I think, with having the publisher up the top is not accidentally starting a new thread when you meant to reply. That was something that kind of plagued my users over at Cerner, when I was teaching the Teams class. It was the reply was like right here, but then the new thread was like just underneath it, and it was almost like you had two chat boxes right next to each other. So I had people that they thought they were replying to a thread, but they were actually creating a whole new thread that they were talking about some context that people didn't follow. So I think by separating that a little bit, so your reply is all the way down here, your new post is up here at the top. I think that will also, have a little bit of like less false new threads or whatever you want to call it, where people accidentally replying or starting a new thread, whatever they meant to not do.
There were
So
even
hopefully
times when
that
the reply
helps.
button was actually hid behind the new conversation. You would have to scroll down in order to find
Hmm.
the reply to the thread that you were in. So having this separated top and bottom, I think is going to be a
Yeah.
huge benefit to
I'm gonna
users.
flip over to the old teams and show you guys what I'm talking about there. So like it, I think it's pretty clear whenever I get it up here in like 20 seconds, whenever it shows. Uh, what I'm talking about, where people were kind of like stumbling into the wrong box. Um, so if I go into like the teams right here, and we're in like the design or general channel, and there's like some stuff in there. I guess they did get away with it, away from it by having the reply here and the new conversation rather than it being just an open text box. So I did forget about that, but it used to be that this was all you had was the new conversation was opened and then the reply button next to it. So people would get lost. So I guess it's not quite as big of a risk anymore, but having it physically separated, I guess you're putting more thought into crafting something at the top of the page. So I forgot about that new conversation button. It's been a while.
And while you load, the other thing I think
Yeah.
that's kind of subtle about this is like the fact that I'm not having to go and click on the A icon with the paintbrush to open the formatter to get to all the formatting options. I just clicked in the message and all of that's open. That's one less thing that I have to worry about. Why one
Hmm.
less click, like bam, it's there. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And A Train, he had a question about like, or a comment like, I really hope that text editor is improved. Um, I know that like it's improved just in the fact that like the bar is showing all the time, the formatting bar. But from what I can see, there's not quite as many, things as like what you'd have in Word or something like that. I would say maybe one thing I would like to see would be, I have paragraph, heading one, heading two, heading three, and monospace, but I don't have just like a font picker. So I'm kind of wondering like why don't they make it so that you could do more text formatting as far as like, I want, you know, whatever font, even if it's web-based only fonts that work. That way people don't have to have the fonts installed on their computer. I think it would be nice to have a little bit more type of options. But you do have like the highlighter color, the text itself, so you can have like a colored background and a different color of the text on top of it, strike through, underline, all those types of things are available. I'm curious, A Train in the chat, if you've got something that you're missing. The only thing I could think of is maybe like font choice. Um, so yeah. And then there was a question in here also about like, why isn't Loop showing up? Tom answered it, but yeah, Loop isn't showing up inside of here yet because it's not available in channels. But I think I missed that. He said that it was in the Copilot announcement video. There was some sizzle reel section about having a Loop component in a channel. So hopefully that means it's coming somewhat soon.
In the fall.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, A Train says, "Hey, whenever I'm adding a new message, adding a bullet would sometimes send the message." Dude, I've done that too, where I'm like, okay, should I do like a shift enter or actually just enter right here? So if I'm typing in the publisher right here, hey, everyone, here is some bullets. Like in the past, what you've done is then you would like do like a shift enter to kind of like add more lines, or you would like do a shift enter, add a bullet, and then you just be able to hit enter. It adds a new bullet to it. If I get rid of those bullets though, and just do in the past, if you would hit enter like that, it would have sent the message. But now I'm able to just hit enter with a single finger and I don't accidentally post until I click the button for post. So, yes, it looks like you're not going to accidentally post. Now, to be fair, in the old teams, the current version teams, if you got into that extra formatting, it's like the little A with a pencil icon, it switched to this behavior. So in that one, I don't think you would accidentally post either. But because this is the default, you by default aren't accidentally posting. So hopefully that helps with that question that came up.
We had a great question in the chat. Let me pull it up real quick.
I was also talking about keyboard shortcuts. So I'll test that while you're pulling up the other thing. So here is some bold, italic, underline text. So if I double click on bold and do Command B, oh wait, I'm on a Windows. Control B, Control I, italics, and Control U. So the keyboard shortcuts do work, A-Train. So hopefully that helps with that. I was able to do those. What is strike through? Like I don't know if there's a shortcut for. Nope, that's capture. For strike through. I'm trying to hover over it, but I don't see. So at least you can do those three. That's cool. So what were you gonna bring up? You want me to flip to you?
Yeah, John had
Oh,
a
sorry.
question about the memory footprint. So let me bring that up. So this is the memory
Okay.
footprint currently running on mine. Now, full disclosure, just in case you're tuning in late, I am on a Mac M1 ARM chip, the M1
Mm-hmm.
Max, and I'm running Parallels, but it's currently only consuming 600 megs of memory
Mm-hmm.
on my machine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at mine right now as well. So there's Microsoft Teams. It's kind of jumping around. Mine is using 412 megabytes of RAM, and it's using 0.1% CPU. Let me sort by name instead of CPU so I know that there's not. I think the other thing that's an improvement, yeah, I don't see like all the others, is it's okay, well, it does still have a whole lot of processes. So you do see all these ones that are called WebView 2. Um, so that kind of adds up to all of it. So the biggest one is whatever this WebView 2 module is or process is using 300 of that 400 meg. This is also to say, as we get into a meeting and we do a test meeting, we'll probably see that come up, right? Because we're doing audio and video and things like that. So, um, but yeah, it seems to be okay. I mean, half a gig is fine if you're running like a 32 gig laptop, something like that. Honestly, there's not a whole lot of like 4 gig laptops out there now. So yeah, seems a little bit better. Um, what's the next thing here on
Known
our
issues.
list of stuff to talk about? Okay, yeah. So some of the known issues that we've got, if I bring up that thing right here, there's a big list that I'll put in the chat right now for this. There you go. And that is the known issues for the Teams 2.0 client. It's in their big document about like how to roll it out, what the prereqs are, all of that type of stuff. So if I go in here, um, the known issues section, there's some general ones like presence, stuff like that, some accessibility. That's just kind of generic that like there might be some gaps, but they don't call anything out specific. Um, we've got a few things that we kind of think are like heavy hitters for what we care about. But some of the things that are big for me is if you're screen sharing or you're in do not disturb. This is mentioned in a couple of those headers. The toast notifications pop up for you. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. If you go into screen sharing, automatically you should go into do not disturb or presenting mode. Be aware that sometimes toast notifications pop up. So we're kind of back to the Skype days of like, somebody sends just like a period or a you there because they don't want to send an embarrassing thing while you're presenting. Be careful about that. I haven't seen this personally, but there's also blank pop outs. So people like clicking on a chat notification, it comes up with a blank window. I think I've seen in the notes, if I do like blank, it's for a few moments. I think it's like basically it's blank for a little bit, but then it paints in the rest of the chat. So that's that. Also, people have reported or they've got a known issue around poor screen sharing resolution. So you might notice when somebody shares their screen, it's a little bit more pixelated than it would have been. They say in there that that's something they're actively working to fix. The accidental leaving. So whenever you go to leave a meeting, it will ask if you're sure. Like whenever I know on a Mac, it does this if I hit like Command W. So if you hit the shortcut to like close a window from your keyboard and it tries to close the meeting, it will say, whoa, you're in a meeting. Are you sure you want to leave the meeting? And then you say, oh, thank goodness. And you hit X and you don't leave the meeting. Apparently with Teams 2.0 or 2.1, it will just leave the meeting without asking you. So be aware of that if you're using your keyboard shortcuts. The mute and camera enablement. So whenever you're in a meeting, let me just launch a meeting real quick. Whenever you're in the meeting and you've got like the mute icon or the camera toggle, apparently that can show sometimes as enabled when you're actually muted. So you'll probably see like down in the corner for yourself that you're not muted, but that's something to think about there. So let me just get into a meeting and kind of look at a couple of these real quick. Okay, so this is gonna be hard because I don't have a microphone on this one apparently, but there's Megan Bowen. She's talking. I'm doing. By the way, I use OBS for this, like a fake video loop type thing. But apparently, whenever you toggle that back and forth, sometimes it can show that it's enabled when it's actually truly disabled. So that's something to think about. And then if I go in here and I hit Control W, see, it just closed the meeting out. It didn't say, are you sure you want to close? So that kind of illustrates this previous one of accidentally leaving. I didn't get the whole like enablement thing to be able to show. I don't know if you have that or not, Andy, in yours. And then apparently there's a presence mismatch sometimes too, where it'll show you as available when you're actually not available, things like that. What did Tom say here?
I love leaving meetings.
Now, what I do is I don't, use a keyboard shortcut for that. I use my Stream Deck, and I've got that big, nuclear option, the big phone icon to just leave the meeting. I'm going to wear that button out by leaving meetings with my Stream Deck. So, other things you want to point out, Andy?
There. Yeah, just
Go ahead.
A leaving meeting question. Do you mute, turn off your camera, and then leave, or do you just leave? I'm just curious. Like, put it in the chat. I'm just kind of curious to see how people leave meetings. Do you shut down?
I'm curious. Like now, I can't imagine what.
That's so. Do you just hit the leave button and then go, or do you turn off your camera and then your mic and then leave?
It's like asking, do you put your toilet paper on the roll going over or under?
Well, there's a right and a wrong answer there.
Yeah, there is definitely. My wife hasn't gotten it right yet. I always switch it. The other thing is like it's like, do you put both socks on and then your shoes, or do you put one sock and then the shoe and the other sock and then the shoe?
Supposedly, people put their pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing I heard on a podcast is a life hack apparently is put your belt on your pants before you put your pants on. Apparently, it's like life changing. Like if you got a new pair of pants and your belt, most people like I put my pants on and then I like thread my belt through. Apparently, like some guys like it's way easier to loop all of your belt on and then put your pants on so you don't miss any belt loops. I'd never heard of that before, but apparently that's a life hack.
So
So
as we're talking about this, I can't help but think like, have you ever tried to dress a toddler? Because the more that you can stack up and get done at one time, the
that's
more
true.
the higher
Yeah.
your success rate is going to be. Because there's sometimes you get one sock on and then they're gone, and then you got to
Yeah.
wrestle them, and it's like trying to dress an alligator.
Yeah, you get the next layer like half on and they wiggled out of the one you just did. People are saying like I just leave. I tend to click just leave. John says, you know, he doesn't really have his camera on most of the time. Tom says he switches to the new avatar and then he leaves without explanation. So he transforms into the metaverse and then just leaves.
So what we need is a Stream Deck action that automatically converts us to an avatar, does the dab, and then
Yeah.
exit us out of the meeting.
Yeah. I do the avatar too in some meetings, Tom. Usually it's so disruptive that like it's the first 5 minutes of the meeting when you join and shock everybody. But
No,
yeah,
I just
I'm one
pre-thought
that
it.
I just leave the meeting. Do you like mute and kind of like get out of the meeting that way, or do you just hit leave?
I'm really paranoid about the camera staying on and like, having a Zoom bomb like way back in the day. So like I typically make sure like my at least my camera's deactivated before I leave the meeting.
Okay. And that's just so you don't accidentally have it on in the next
Yeah.
meeting because that's the
Yep.
default. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I've never
It's
heard of
just
somebody being worried about that.
I have so many cameras around me. It's ridiculous. Like in
That's
my
true.
line of sight, I have six, I have 7 or 8
Yeah.
cameras immediately around me.
I know.
But
I've
like,
got like 3 facing me right now, and then
yeah.
I've got a stack of MTRs behind me that are all cameras
Oh, you
without,
brought there's 8. I've got
an MTR in there.
I've got 3
Yeah.
webcams that I'm testing slash content cameras. I've got an MTR. I've got that's 9. My laptop, both work laptops have cameras built in. One monitor has a camera built in, and then I have my fancy cameras.
Yeah. I've got
Yeah.
one bar that I don't think I can show right yet. It has 4 camera lenses on it that are looking at me right now. So yeah, like
You
on
got
that
me,
one
Daryl.
thing, there's 4. Ridiculous. Yeah, it's like the Truman Show in Andy's office.
Yeah, so I just I make sure the camera turns off before I head over or head out and go to the next one.
Yeah. This is a good question. Like, is there a team certified camera with a Teams button yet? Um, I don't know about a standalone camera necessarily. There's like the Microsoft camera, the Brio. They don't have Teams buttons on them. Um, but there are those displays, the Teams displays that are kind of forthcoming. Like, let me show one of them here. This is going to be like maybe way overkill for you, but the Link A24, um, that's what's on my desk I'm looking at right now. It is a beautiful device. I love this thing. But that's one where it's a whole monitor with the camera built into it at the top, and it has a Teams button, and you click the camera button, it goes up and down outside of the top of this. It's also got a wireless charger on it, microphone toggle. The bottom is a speaker and a wireless charger. It also, doubles as like a dock for your laptop, charges your laptop, all that cool stuff. It's also a whiteboard, so it's got a touch screen for drawing. But that one, that's, I mean, a camera that has a Teams button. It's kind of all in one in a station. Uh, this one was just newly Teams certified. There's also a Dell conference monitor that I know of. It's not a Teams display, so it doesn't have its own Android OS on it. But there's monitors. I think there's 3 sizes. John Ernst would know in the chat because we actually validated them together. And it's got a speaker, microphone, camera, and a Teams button on it. Let me look it up. Dell conference monitor Teams. There was like a 24, a 27, and a 34-inch version of those. And here's what it looks like. So it's got the Teams button and like the volume and microphone. This whole bottom section here is the speaker. And then it's got this nice, I think it's Windows Hello certified, maybe that you can pop up and down. This one does not run its own operating system. So you connect your laptop over USB-C and then it powers your laptop. And that way you don't have another OS to manage like you would with the Yeah Link. This is a standalone device, or it could be used in peripheral mode. So I don't know if that's along the lines of what you were asking, but it might be something that you could check out if you've got money to burn. I love the Yeah Link one; it's super cool. So the one that was on screen, Tom, that was the Dell monitor. The one that's like you could pull it down and whiteboard. That's by Yeah Link. It's a A23. So yeah, John, if you remember, if you know the model number on those Dells, let him know. I remember that like we had them on our desks at Cerner because we were testing them out for executive offices and stuff. So
On to the roadmap.
yeah, I think that covers like some of the known issues, and
Yeah.
we've separated out what's a known issue from what's missing. It's important to say that because I think people might be thinking in their mind like they're glossing over like a ton of stuff that's not in the Teams client. We're going to get to what's missing and what our recommendation is, but as far as the known issues, that's the stuff that's broken. That gives you a little bit of a list, and there's a link in the chat. We could probably post that again for you. The roadmap, though, what is coming that we know about specifically? The first one for me that I'm excited about, Mac support, obviously. So Mac, VDI, the EDU type of tenants, and the web-based client. Those are all things that are coming later. I think, Andy, you said that there was a blog somewhere. They said they're targeting fall for some of these options.
I believe so.
So yeah, hopefully maybe some of them. I don't know specifically any dates for these. I kind of personally, just to set my own expectations, I'm not holding my breath to see any of these other ones before probably the end of the year. But I would like to have high hopes, low expectations when it comes to Microsoft delivery dates. So those are coming. Also, this is not available yet in GCC, GCC High, or DoD. So those like secure clouds. I mean, they're all secure, but like the government clouds, they're not available there yet as well. Tom's adding some details. Says, yeah, when he says VDI, this means that you cannot run this in Windows 365. So if you're a Windows 365 user, that's along the lines of VDI as well. Also, the EDU tenant, he says he has some EDU tenants. Not sure what he means by that. It affects A plans. Our E users have it. So it depends on your
E1,
licensing
E3,
level.
E5
Yeah.
versus like
If
A1.
you're
Yeah.
E3, E5, yes, you can use the new teams. If you're, A1, A3, whatever the A ones are, then you don't have the new teams yet. So you wouldn't be able to turn it on for your organization. Daryl said he saw some partial Mac support the last couple of weeks, and then it disappeared. So,
and we should also note
that would be cool.
And hopefully we've emphasized this enough, but what's being worked on web platforms, this is just the desktop client. This is not in the web. The web is still classic. The web has not been updated. This is strictly the desktop client.
Yeah, if you flip the switch up here, that does not affect teams.microsoft.com for you. That only is going to affect this install on this Windows computer. So yeah, that's important to point out. Some of the other advanced calling features. So if you're a type of person who does like call queues, like you're in a call center, the new Teams is not for you because there's no call center support yet. Also, some of the advanced meeting features. We didn't get into the meeting too deep, but you can't manage breakout rooms. That's what I meant. You can't manage your breakout rooms. I think also like some of the video filters, camera filters aren't available yet in the new Teams, stuff like that. They're also talking about 7x7 video. So it used to be called the large gallery, but when you've got 49 people up on screen, it's not available. So that would mean what, Andy? That it maxes out at like 12 people or something. Doesn't it like go from 12 to large gallery mode,
I can't
7 by
remember.
7,
We've
something
got
like
that in
that.
our
It's either
notes coming up.
9 or 12, rather than 49 people. I would imagine also that paging might not be there when you can like kind of page through the gallery. I've heard that that's something that rolled out. Um, this is a big one in my opinion. If you're a person who manages Microsoft Teams, um, then the channel creation and team creation, as well as cross posting. So if you're a type of person who's like your job is to make the teams for your group, um, you're not going to be ready yet, or you're going to use that web version. So you can like make the new channels and you can add tabs and all that type of stuff. So some of those third party apps, the line of business apps, the channel creation, that's where I think most people probably are going to have hangups, is with just like managing Microsoft Teams and managing those chats. Also, search inside of a chat or channel is not available. So I can search up at the top here. So, like, if I search for, I don't know, like marketing or something, um, I can search across all of Teams, right? And that's going to find messages and people and files. That works fine. But what they mean is when you do like the control F, right? So in the old Teams client, say I'm in this particular thread and I want to search for like manage, I would do control F and it would pop up to be able to search just this one thread. You can't do that in the new Teams client yet. So you can search across everything, but not in a specific one. Um, yeah, but there is a lot of things that are available. So like the new channel experience, being able to do multi-account, multi-tenant, the Microsoft application, so like approvals, things like that. Viva Engage, that's available in the new Teams, but not those third-party applications. I haven't seen yet, is avatars available in the new Teams? It doesn't look like it is,
No.
because I can't install new applications and avatars isn't here. I'm in public preview right now. Um, that's something to keep in mind too. You can't use your avatar in the new Teams yet. So
So
cool.
with that, let's go into the feature parity, because there's
Mhm.
we did it kind of high level moving through there, but there are a lot of features that
Yeah,
we
we've got
should
more
mention.
specific things on the list here.
Yeah.
Just I'm going to make this a little bit wider, maybe. Um, so just from the top down to the bottom, the whole adding channels, tabs, and members, things like that. So if I go into my Microsoft team and I go in here, I can just manage the team. But you notice that like that menu is really short, right? I can see who the members are. I can see who the admins are, and I can even switch them from a member to an owner, but I'm not able to add new members or new owners to this particular team. So you would want to toggle off for that, switch back to the old client, or use the web. Same thing with channels. If I go into the channels, I can see what they are and I can do the management. So I can get into the settings, some of the settings, but I can't add a new channel to this team. So I can only basically do the tags and the general settings for the team. So that's something that's missing. I think that's fairly important for some people.
So the
The
key
ability to add and
takeaway,
remove
you can
apps. Go ahead.
participate in the channel, but you just can't add the new channels or add people to it. You can't manage it. So we can participate. And I think that's going to be a running theme. We're going to be able to participate in certain things, but some of the management setting capabilities are just not there yet.
Hmm. Yeah. So the ability to the app management stuff. So I showed that like you can't go add new apps. That's missing from the bottom down here. I also don't have a search at the top to search the app store and add the avatars app. So you can't do that. Also, pinning and rearranging. Like I'm right clicking right now. I can't right click and remove. Like I usually remove the calls feature. I can't remove that. I also cannot. I'm clicking and dragging. I can't rearrange those either, and I can't like promote shifts to my menu. So basically, you're locked into this menu and only this menu. Um,
Hey,
so that's
so
something to think about.
go back to your screen for a second.
Yeah.
All right, up at the top, teams, and then you got your meatball menu filter, and then the plus sign. There's your new
Okay,
join
yeah.
teams button.
Yeah, Tom was pointing that out, wasn't he? Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
So the plus button up here at the top, that's where create a team would be. And it even has the sample text right there, create or join. Only joining is available right now. You can't create yet. So that's that. You can still search for your teams and channels. Broken app icons. I don't have any broken icons, but apparently that's one of the known issues is that you might have some icons that don't load for your applications. So keep an eye out for that. Um, it's also probably important to note that um, is to give feedback on this type of stuff. Like if you have a broken app icon or you see something, I would recommend go to help and do give feedback so you can get that back to Microsoft. What did you run into? You know, that type of stuff. You're in public preview, so you're kind of in a test ring by running this version of Teams. Give feedback, you know, do your part. So I would recommend that if you run into any of these broken things.
It would be
Um,
cool if they were to link Copilot to the feedback button, so I could just say, "Hey, Copilot, give feedback because this is broken," and like Copilot handle it for me, and then send the
yeah,
feedback in.
or like the shake on the phone. Shake my laptop.
Man, I can't tell you how many times I put my phone in my pocket and it's not asleep yet, or it's not, or I haven't
Uh-huh.
hit the button, and then when I pull it back out of my pocket, it's like feedback, and I'm like, "Oh, cancel," and then I have to cancel like 20 times because it's been in my pocket as I've been
Yeah.
walking.
So in the chat, there's a couple things that are missing that, you know, it's not a ton, but searching for external people. This is even if you're federated with them and you're looking for their email address, that's missing. So you can't start a new chat with an external person. You're going to need to flip to the old teams, go find that person, start talking to them. Then you can flip to the new teams. Also, at mentioning everyone. So I want to test this out and see what it looks like. If I go into like this general tab and there's multiple people in here and I start a new post, you saw earlier I was able to at mention Andy and I can at mention people specifically, but I can't do at everyone. Can I do at team? No, that's not a thing. So I tabbed off of it.
Can you do the name of the
Okay,
team?
so it
Yeah,
did recommend it whenever, probably because the word team is in it.
yeah.
If I do at Mark 8, it does do that. And if I do at channel, so like at general, if I do at general, I can mention the channel, I can mention the name of the team. Let me go to, so virtual coffee shop. The word team is not in here. Um, Basically, it looks like you can't do those variables. So if I do like at team, okay, it did come up with that option. At channel. So it did offer, because of the type is a channel, I guess it did come up in search. At all? No. At everyone. So it looks like it's just the everyone thing. You can't do that. Now in a chat, what can I do with a chat here? This is my daily stand up. I should be able to at mention Alex, right? Like that shows up. But a new feature that was in the old teams is you could at everyone in a group chat and it would notify everybody. That's not available yet in the new teams. So
Do you have any of your users organized by tags or tagged?
I do not, I don't think. Let me check that. So let's manage tags and let's add a tag. So we're going to do the cool people and we're going to add Alex because he's pretty cool and Megan. She's pretty cool. So we got those people as a tag, the cool people. And then there's like 16 other people in here. So can I mention the tag? Subject at cool people. So it does let you do tags. So that's nice. Yeah. Other things to test with that you can think of?
Those were the main one. The being able to at mention the team, at mention the channel, and then the tags.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Now when we get down to meetings, there's a lot for the meeting stuff. One is the HID controls or the HID controls. This is going to affect your team's devices. So that's going to be actually I don't know if it does like proper team certified devices, but if you have like a microphone that has a mute button on it and it controls it like through a HID control, like a keyboard type of control, those don't work. So that's your things like being able to mute those types of deals. Um, Also, what's missing, some of us are really excited about Stream Deck. There's no API key in the new version. So if I go over here to settings, it was under devices, right? Is where
Privacy.
the API was.
I believe it's under
Privacy.
privacy.
Okay, it was in privacy. There's no API section right now. So Stream Deck support, I don't believe is there. And that's also your other HID controls for like mute and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. I think that's a pretty big deal.
But some
the-
shortcuts work.
yeah, those keyboard shortcuts. So like, what is that? Control Shift M or something like
Yeah.
that for muting.
Yeah,
Those
so
would work still.
you can still program like hotkeys in your Stream Deck and use
Mhm.
keyboard shortcuts for some of the stuff, but like the recently released,
If you have the window active.
yeah.
That's kind of a killer for me, kind of a showstopper for me because I live by my Stream Deck when I'm in meetings now.
Is that like going back to the
Um,
Stone Ages for you, John?
It feels like it, yes. Scheduling. So
What do
if
you
you do
mean I
some
have to push the
advanced
button
scheduling,
manually?
yeah, right, like a caveman.
You gotta use your
If you do
hands.
advanced things with scheduling, like forwarding or setting like I want to schedule this in the team's calendar, I don't know why you would, and show as free or something like that, as well as categories. Some of those are not available. So if I go to like schedule a new meeting, let's just see what we've got available for us. See, I see that. So maybe this is an update. Like if I'm going to make this out of office and say Megan's PTO, and I want to make it like an orange category, it appears that the category that stuff is working. And then if I add like Alex because I want to be mean to him and do that, I can set it as all day. So I guess I can do that. Also, response options, I can not request or not allow forwarding. It's like, let's send that. And it popped up. So it is orange and it's marked as out of office because you can kind of see like the little sliver of the ribbon. So I don't really know what they're saying about that. If I go on here, I'm not seeing that I can forward any meetings, but I can like, yeah, see, here's one that I'm invited to. Well, no, because that's a cancel. I can change the show as, I can change the category. So it looks like those things are available. I kind of think maybe, oh, here we go. So accept, decline. This is one I was invited to. I can't forward the invite, but I don't remember if I could do that on the old Teams client because I never really used those features with the calendar. So maybe your mileage might vary as far as the advanced scheduling. It looks like I can do a webinar. I can not allow forwarding, all those types of things. So maybe that's an update just since they posted that article. Managing breakout rooms. So when you're in a meeting, so like I scheduled that meeting with Alex. I'm going to go edit that meeting. Up here at the top, let's look at the tabs that open up for me. So I've got like the Q&A, the assistant, stuff like that. I do not have breakout rooms available in this tab. And if we join the meeting here, then let's go into the meeting and see what breakout room options are available. So as it loaded in all these other things, I don't have the apps button. I also don't have anything about breakout rooms in here, which not having the apps section also means that I won't be able to add a poll in the meeting. So that's kind of an important thing for a lot of people. If I go into the meeting options, let's see what I can change in the meeting while we're in here. So I want to see, can I turn on Q&A? Because that's almost quasi an app. So let's do that. and Q&A is unavailable in the new team. So because it adds it as a meeting app, you can't do that. So it looks like basically all meeting apps are kind of out of the picture right now. Stay tuned. So no breakout room stuff. That's kind of a bummer. Share and collaborate on a whiteboard. So if I go in here and I hit share, I can share my screen, I can share a window, I can also share PowerPoint live, but you'll notice there's no whiteboard option here. So you can't share a whiteboard, you can't create or pick an existing whiteboard. Also, I don't see Excel live here. I don't think that was mentioned in the list, but I don't see Excel live either. So yeah, another bummer there because I've been using whiteboard more and more in meetings lately. Excel live not available. Previewing your video settings. So if I go in here and I'm going to go into devices, so I'm in the meeting, hit device settings, and then I turn on that camera view, I can't preview that. Let me leave and rejoin this meeting. See if I can do that from the join screen. So I'm not in the meeting yet. I'm going to turn on my camera. And okay, so I can see Megan before joining the meeting, which is the most important, in my opinion. I can change the background on her. So there's a different background for her. That works good. I can open up the settings cog. I can adjust brightness. I can turn on soft focus, those types of things. So those are available. It just looks like you can't preview yourself in the meeting. I wonder if what they're talking about is
When you hover
the
over the
camera
camera.
option. Yeah. So
Yeah.
whenever you hover over and just don't touch it. Yeah. Usually it comes up with a little picture in picture window and
Yep.
shows you a preview of your camera. So I think that's what they're talking about is you don't see your camera until you turn it on. So be aware of that.
Hey, before you go in go into a presenter mode.
Okay. Yeah. So let's share my screen here in the meeting. Like that.
Mhm.
So I'm sharing, I'm, in a normal Teams view, but you'll notice I didn't have any options and I don't have that control bar at the very top of my window that would be up here. That's not available for me. If I open this back up, Windows recently set you to do not disturb. You may have missed. Okay, whatever. So, yeah, I don't have the ability to go into one of those presenter modes. Those would be up here in this area.
The presenter toolbar, and then the various presenter modes that would be available through it.
Yeah, and that's not available at all, the presenter toolbar.
Yep.
That's what they call it. So both of these are not available, which means you don't have presenter mode. It also means that you don't have annotations because the way that you annotate in your screen in a meeting is by clicking the pencil icon in the presenter bar. So because you don't have that, you won't be able to do annotation powered by whiteboard. So keep that in mind. That's another kind of a big deal, especially if you're doing, like design sessions, right? You want to mark up a design with annotations. You won't be using the new teams for that yet.
So this is a good place to brief segue.
Yeah,
Daryl asked
there's no news desk
this
presenter.
question yesterday.
Mhm.
He asked on the Mac if there was an equivalent for the Zoom It tool on Windows to be able to zoom into a certain part of a screen and to be
Mm.
able to annotate. For those of you that are Windows users, what's your annotation slash Zoom tool of choice? And then for those of you on the Mac, what's your presentation annotation tool of choice? I know
Mhm.
John and I both use Presentify, and then John, you've got another cursor tool
Yeah, there was a
that you
question from I
prefer.
think A Train on the how are you highlighting your cursor?
Yeah.
I use something called Cursor Pro for mine, so I can highlight and I can zoom in. I'm hitting my control key on my keyboard to basically zoom in like a magnifying glass. If I open up the Presentify right here, that's going to activate that toolbar. Where's it at? I don't think I'm running Presentify. Let me open that up first. Is it Okay, there we go. So I opened that up, and that brings this little toolbar. Dang it. Is that not going to work? So I'm doing that, but not over on this monitor. I got to like change the setting, I guess. Let me fix this real quick here.
I got Presentify up. I'll bring it over.
Okay, yeah, why don't you
Yeah.
bring it up? So
Yeah. So like,
what Andy's doing now is using a third-party application called Presentify to annotate his screen. Now, you have more options than the Teams annotations by doing this, but the big thing you're missing by doing this is collaborative annotations. You know, with the Teams annotations, you can let other people write on your screen. With this one, you can't. You're basically the person in charge. So Tom says he uses Zoom It or Windows plus plus if he's not allowed to install other things. So yeah, that's something you might have to go to like a third party app if you want to like mark up your screen or like highlight your cursor. Another thing I use on the Mac is yeah, let me bring that up. It's not going to look very pretty, but another thing I use is something called what's it called here? Mirror Magnet. So that's another application I use to do like picture in picture. So if I turn on my camera, I want to select like the cam link, and then I want it to be like in the lower corner down here. I have this app that I use, and I have a button that turns it on and off. So I can kind of do like it's the equivalent of the standout mode. And what I like about it is if I move my cursor down there, it dims it so you can see what I'm pointing at on my cursor. So basically saying like if you need presenter modes and annotation and you want to use the new Teams, look at some third party options. We're getting back to like being creative again, like we were before we had these first party tools. So anything else to add about those two, Andy?
no, I just wanted to bring that up because
Okay.
that conversation with Daryl was fresh in my mind, especially
Okay.
anything
Cool.
related to annotation or whiteboarding.
Yeah.
There are some tools out there that allow you to do some of that.
Yeah. So Presentify is that annotation tool, and it will highlight your cursor too. You can choose to let it highlight your cursor. What I personally use is Cursor Pro, and that's just because like I have a lot more options and the magnifying glass. So that's why I use two applications for mine. The attendance report. So you can't view the attendance report like inline, but you can download the attendance report. So if I go up here to attendance at the top, I'm not going to get quite as nice of a table. Well, no, I do. So I don't know what they're talking about here either. This might be something that's dated also, because I've got the table where I can like scroll through and I can see how long the person was in, and I can download that. So maybe this is dated.
Can you toggle the date drop down in the upper left hand corner? So
Yeah.
if it looks like it will support a series as well.
Yeah, it looks like it'll support a recurring meeting. Yeah. So I think maybe we can scratch that one off the list. Yeah, let's scratch that one off the list. And then what was the other one? The scheduling stuff.
Mhm.
I think maybe those are already better for us, so that's good.
They did make an update on the 12th to the roadmap.
Okay, good. So call health. This is another one. It says that you can't use call health. So let's see if we have that available to us. I think it's in settings, isn't it? No, I do not have that. So that's another thing, the kind of like live call health where it shows like your resolution, your bit rate, all that type of stuff. That's not in there.
But how
So
am I going to complain if I can't check my call health?
yeah. So I'm curious if anybody in the chat uses call health today. I don't ever use it
We've actually
personally,
had to use it a lot
but
recently. We had
yeah, I
some
don't do like
physicians.
support tickets, so I don't really
Yeah.
have to pay attention too much.
So half my role is supporting Teams meeting devices and video conferencing, and we had
Yeah.
some physicians that were having issues with the resolution of some things that they were sharing in Teams meetings.
Mhm.
And same computer, same room, same network, and the resolution was just really, really low. But if they were to connect into a Teams meeting device, the resolution went up. And so we had to do a lot of network
Mhm.
diagnostics to figure out what was going on. And we were able to get some fixes from Microsoft on that. But yeah, we used Call Health quite a bit to do some of that
Yeah,
troubleshooting.
it's
And
a
even,
helpful tool.
yeah, even working like remote, just on the local network that you're on, um, you home router, figuring out if there's a bottleneck that maybe if you switch your router to streaming mode might
Mhm.
address the ability to share your desktop versus like if the
Yeah.
resolution's low or poor, things like that. So it's been really helpful, but to not have it,
Mhm.
hopefully they'll roll that out or an updated version of it.
Yeah. Back to the call or the meeting options or, like, when you're scheduling a meeting, the advanced stuff. Tom was saying for a while, he had the meeting options when he was setting up a meeting, but then it got yanked away. So I see meeting options right now in this one. Let me schedule a new meeting and see if it's available at scheduling time. So let's close out of that. Let's start a new meeting. Um, it may be that what you have to do. Yeah, see, I don't see meeting options like in at scheduling time. So it looks like what you got to do is schedule the meeting, then go click into it and do meeting options, which is the way I've always remembered doing it. Meeting apps, we already covered that one. So that's your polls, your Q&A. Meeting options, I think we can take that off the list because I was able to do that during the meeting. But also games for work. This is a fun, you could do Minesweeper, stuff like that. We have a colleague of mine, good friend Jason, he's leaving my organization today. So we had like a fun get together, to kind of celebrate him and, blow off some steam a little bit. We did games for work and we actually played some word games. And I highly recommend it. It's really cool if you're using the old Teams client. So not available in the new Teams, but games for work. Check it out if you can. I think it's cool. Camera filters. So this is that overlay with the filters and stuff like that. I'm in Megan Bowen's meeting here, and we're going to go to her device settings. And this is where like the overlays would be. So she can do brightness and soft focus. If I go background effects, this is where the overlays are, right? And like the new uh, Snapchat filters. I
Yeah.
think they're in the background or the video
It's
settings, I
like,
think is what they
yeah, it's
changed it to.
background settings up top, and then I believe it's the
Yeah.
video effects down below.
Yeah. So we're going back in time a little bit with that. You only have background settings. You don't have the animated front parts or the filters where you can have, a bear hugging your neck or whatever.
And as we look
Um,
forward, some of the things that are in preview, like the avatars, are not there, and then the new Snapchat filters that Microsoft's been advertising all week.
mhm.
That one's both forward and backward because immediately, Daryl and, and Daniel were talking about this on their show earlier this week. And
Yeah.
immediately when they discussed that message in the message center, I'm like, I remember that lawyer. He's like, "I'm not a cat."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, real high value feature there. Um,
Oh,
so
hey, before we go on,
yeah,
hey
something
Tom,
else with
can you
meetings.
put the folder location in the chat? That might be helpful for some people that might be interested in that. So there's the background effects. There's a certain folder for it, and for a while it was kind of a workaround where you would have to go and update. You could update them there manually, but you couldn't run through the Teams client in order to get it. They've fixed
Mhm.
all of that, but some of the IT pros might want to
Yeah,
know where that folder
because maybe
location
they were
is.
delivering them with SCCM or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can add a new background. It did come up with that, so that's good. But yeah, if you're like doing it programmatically at your organization, it would be helpful to know that folder location. Um, yeah, if Tom finds it and puts it in the chat, I'll highlight it for us.
And we'll give a virtual high
Anything else
five.
with meetings that you think of? We covered
Um,
everything in the list.
so we talked like this is about the parity and all the things that are mentioning, but I think it is
Yeah.
worth mentioning that the couple of things are happening with this. So if like I'm in Andy's tenant and you've got a meeting scheduled with me and it's in your tenant, it's going to try to auto switch me in a pop-up window to your tenant. So I get the best
Mhm.
experience. So I get the guest in your tenant versus like the external guest experience from my tenant. So that's going to
Yeah.
be a subtle change for end users. They don't necessarily have to worry about switching tenants to join the meeting. It's going to kind of preemptively
Yeah.
do some of that. But that also means that I could join a meeting in that pop-up window, and then I can still use the Teams client to maybe stay where I am and have a chat or a conversation in like
Mhm.
my main tenant
That's
while
so
still
cool.
participating in like that
Yeah.
that external. So
And I'll just
that's
kinda show that
huge
here. So
productivity boost.
we got Megan, she's in Contoso right now, but in her main Teams client, she's gonna flip over to Collab more and start working in a different tenant. Like, how cool is that? To be able to, like, kinda live in both worlds at the same time in a meeting.
And not
That's
drop the
really
call.
nice. Yeah, and not drop the call during that process. Like, that's awesome to have that. I guess another thing I wanna check in on while I've had this meeting running for a while, and I'm kinda, like, pushing my virtual machine. Why don't we go look back at the, processes, see what we got going for Microsoft Teams. So, now I'm using 566 megabit or megabytes, 24% of my CPU for that, and I've got a couple more, processes running as well. So, but yeah, the thing that's using like the most CPU is this. That might be the meeting process, and it's only using 70 megabytes for that. So, yeah.
Oh, so now back to some things that are missing. We, whiteboard and annotation, the presenter modes,
Yeah.
breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are not currently available, and they say that's on
Yeah.
the short list. But just want to
Mhm.
reiterate that that
Yeah, big
they're
deal,
not
especially in
there.
education,
Yep.
you know. I wonder if that's why they haven't put it to the A customers yet, or something. Because like breakout rooms are so critical in EDU. I wonder if that might be part of it. So here's where here's that location if you want to find that. Um, fellow administrators. It's in this different local cache, MS Teams, and then backgrounds. So cool. Thanks for that, Tom. Oh, there you go. There's the environment variable. So local app data, packages, MS Teams, and then this squid, local cache. So yeah, do your local app data and then packages. Sweet. Very helpful. Um, yeah, so we showed being able to switch tenants during a meeting. That's pretty rad. And when you join and it automatically gives you the features from that tenant because it switches in the background, that's awesome, especially for your channel meetings because you won't have to worry too much about the whole chat. Why doesn't chat work? Um, the back history missing. So this is something that's in. I'm going to get out of the meeting so I don't, chew up resources unnecessarily. Even though that dude, this VM is running really smoothly for being an old virtual machine that usually is sluggish. Um, if I go here in the chat area, there's like the forward and back buttons. And if I go and kind of navigate through, pick a different channel. So in the old version of Teams, all of this navigation that I did, if I would hover over my back button, it was available to me. Like it would have like a little drop down of like my history. That is not available in the new client. You just basically can only like go back, back, back. So that's something to note. I have a video, a Teams tip about that, talking about how cool it is that it like pops out. So that's not available to us yet, but you can just do back and forward. So we're part of the way there. Um, so that brings us to like when should you switch to the new Teams client? Um, Andy, I don't know if you want to cover this section
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
your perspective. I kind of put my bullets down
Yeah.
on this.
Right now, honestly, it's too early to make the switch if you're expecting any kind of consistency, because this is early release slash public preview. So if you're here, you're someone like John or Daryl or myself or Tom, where you're kicking the tires to see what's going on with it and try to identify some of the gaps and some of the pain points that your user base is going to run into. So it's definitely, you can run it now. So if you're going to participate, and like if you're going to join it, or if you're going to join a meeting, you can participate, have a great experience. You want to chat internally in the organization, have a great experience. You want to participate in a team and a channel, you'll have a great experience there. If you're like us and you live in the multi-tenant world, this can help address some pain points. I can be in here across multiple tenants, and I can join a meeting, I can chat, I can get my notifications, and I don't have to worry about all the back and forth. But if you are dependent on those power user features, if you are a teacher, an educator, a trainer, and you live in Teams meetings all day, every day, and you use the whiteboard and the annotation tools, and you use the breakout rooms and all the meeting features that are there, that stuff's missing. So you're not going to switch today because you're not going to get that full presentation experience. If you are early adopter and you really want to test out some of the new things that they're rolling out, like the green screen effect that they're working with, you're going to need to use the Teams 2.0 client on that. Now, as we've seen, it's really easy to switch back and forth. So like from most business activities, if I'm participating, I could stay in the new Teams, and if I run into something that doesn't work, switch back. And depending on your PC, it might be a 20-second switch over, and then you pick up and you go from there back in the classic client. I will give kudos to the team behind this. They are updating that website. We posted in the chat window earlier where we got the table. They are updating that with the feature parity, and they are, it seems like they are pushing through that that list pretty quickly. But the big thing to take away is that this is early access, so you are very much in a beta test with this. So don't depend on it right now. But compared to where we were, wow, huge leap forward, and so it's really exciting to see.
Yeah. So to kind of reiterate that a little bit, I was taking a couple more notes while you were, giving your what advice would you give your users? I the same way. It's pretty easy to switch back and forth. It doesn't hurt much to try it out. I'm going to put this pro tip to use the web client for compatibility needs. So, if you want to explore this, note that you're going to switch back and forth. Maybe use the web client if you want to. For me, I think it depends on what you need. The way I would break it down very simply, if you manage a lot of teams, don't do it yet, because you're going to have a bad time if you're doing channel management, stuff like that. And if you do advanced meeting features, don't do it yet, because you're going to have a bad time. For me, that means Stream Deck support. That's the thing that would be keeping me from it. If you're an educator and use breakout rooms, don't do it yet. Polls, things like that. If you're whiteboarding a lot, definitely don't do it because it's not available. But like Tom, like Daryl, like me, Andy, if you monitor a lot of guest organizations because you're a consultant, or you have a lot of partners that you work with, like me as an architect working with Microsoft, it's probably very worth it for you. Basically for me, if this was available on a Mac, I would basically have to decide, is the not having to switch organizations or the easier switching, is that worth losing Stream Deck support? For me, that's kind of where I'm at personally, is like Stream Deck or, monitoring multiple tenants. That's kind of a hard decision for my perspective, because I love my Stream Deck and using that for Teams, but I also am very annoyed by having to run, multiple instances of the web browser. So personally, probably what I would do is I probably would make the switch early on my own Mac, because I have two Teams devices that have muting and hang up buttons on them that aren't the Stream Deck. So I've got other ways to have my buttons. I wouldn't love it. The other thing, like if you're just like a regular user, you're probably not the type of person who's watching a 2 hour meeting or 2 hour live stream about, the new Teams features. But if you're just like, I just use Teams, I don't care about Teams, but I use it, you might be fine. Honestly, this is one of those things where it's an interesting spot from like a IT perspective because generally when you run like a pilot program with your organization, you want to get early adopters, you want to get power users, you want like the people who are really going to use the crap out of it. With this one in its current state, you actually, if you wanted to run a pilot, I would want people who aren't power users because all the power user stuff isn't there yet. So it's a little bit reverse of what you normally would do, where I would say your weakest users that have the oldest non-performant computers, they probably are going to get the biggest benefit out of using Teams. Your people who are like the engineering laptop people, the people who use and squeeze all the life out of Teams, it's probably not ready for them yet from my perspective. So that's my take on it. Maybe just flip it on its head and think about the people who are crying the most about performance and all they do is chat and attend meetings and they don't run the meetings. Maybe they're your pilot group. Something to think about. So
Yeah, I know we've started soft testing it, and we haven't put together any kind of like formal testing on it, but I know before we make the decision to announce it to the larger enterprise, it's going to have to be probably out of the public preview early access phase, and then we'll do like a testing period on it to figure out like which knobs and switches are going to be core for end users before we look at a larger deployment. But our tentative timeline is probably into summer before we start looking at anything like that, and that's just going to
yeah.
depend on going back through this list and the feature parity and just checking off a lot of these switches as we go. Daryl brings up a really good point, and I want to bring this to the chat window, but Daryl brings up a really good point. I'm still using multiple browser profiles. I need to open a doc from a different tenant. It opens in the same browser profile as Teams. We didn't even test that, and that's another good scenario to think about.
Yeah.
Like if I'm sharing a document and I'm in Andy org and having a conversation with you or Megan, and they're in collab more, like how is that going to how's it going to try and open that up?
That's the consultant life a lot more. You're working in files a lot more with the guest. I'm not a consultant, but what I do is I have my day job and then I work with Microsoft as an IT partner, right? I give them feedback and I do the tap and stuff like that. So I'm not editing documents a whole lot. So like in my world, it's probably fine, the multi-tenant switching. In a consultant's world, you're opening up files, you're probably still going to be popping other browsers.
Yeah.
So it's a good point.
Yeah. And it just goes to show, like, I don't think anybody, just in our conversation here over the last couple of hours, I don't think any two of us work in Teams the same way. Like we kind of crisscross all back and forth with all the different features and functionality that we're doing. I attend a ton of meetings. I deliver a lot of trainings. I don't edit so many documents directly inside of Teams, like for example, whereas like, you're going back and forth with some of the like tap content. You're probably filling some of that stuff out in the Teams browser more so than I am. Like, you kind of pick and choose your own adventure, but I think what they've done here is a huge improvement over what we had. I think they're getting the multi-tenant, multi-access right. I'm really happy with that. And then I think they're taking some of the decision point away from the end user and just getting them to where they need to be to give them the best experience. They don't have to think about it anymore. And I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So when it comes to Mac, if it came to Mac today, would you use it, Andy, in your daily life? You would? I think I would
unless
try
I'm delivering a technical presentation and then I need, some of the
Yeah,
presenter
yeah.
features. But
I
like,
think I would try it in my daily life. I think I would like the multi-tenant. I don't need the performance because I'm on an M2 MacBook Air and it's stupid fast already. But I think I would do it for the multi-tenant. But like you, if I was going to talk in a meeting or present content, I think I would switch back.
Yeah.
I don't think I would advise other people to use it quite yet. I don't think it's quite there. But something to point out as we kind of close out um, is this advice from Tom where he says, I think I'd recommend waiting a little bit for a bigger update. He says it sounds like maybe there's something in May. I haven't heard that myself, but if there's like some major, like, hey, we fixed 30% of the issues, or here's the 10 things we added back into the client. If you get a big wave like
Perhaps
that, it might be
he's
worth it.
referencing the
So
Microsoft 365 conference that is happening May 4th in Las Vegas.
yeah, so maybe there's something there that they would
Yeah.
launch, like, hey, the top 5 top,
Yeah.
things you wanted, we got them. I don't know, I'm just speculating. I I have NDA access, but they have not told me anything about, that. So, um, yeah, so I think it's something to be aware of, something to keep an eye out. I don't switch your 400,000 person tenant to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Now is the time for
but
testing and validation, getting your governance right, making sure like you're thinking
yeah.
about updating your training content, your documents on how to tenant switch and talk to people across different organizations. I think
Mhm.
now's the time to really start to explore and lock that in. And then me personally, I think into summer, probably into the fall is where we might see this more for a general audience.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be thinking of piloting later this year
Yeah.
or early next year, but like you said, this is coming. Start preparing for
In
it.
the
Put,
fall.
like, maybe your IT friends on it. Start, updating your videos and your docs and stuff like that. Better yet, maybe consider launching the Learning Pathways app from adoption.microsoft, because then they update all the documentation. Like, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I've got to say about this. Maybe we'll revisit it in 6 months, see
One
where
more
it's
thing.
at.
I just
Go ahead, man.
noticed, I'm just gonna pull it up on the screen real quick.
Yeah.
Where's the help in the lower left-hand corner?
Oh, it's in the dots at the top.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good to
click
know.
there and then help. Yeah. That's where your feedback is too.
See, we've been going through this whole list and all these things back and forth, reading all these blogs, and that one
Mhm.
completely glanced over. All right,
Yeah.
good to know.
They moved your cheese.
They
So,
moved my cheese. They got me. I'm gonna have to go and tell everybody where it is.
cool. Well, awesome, guys. I think that's about it for today. I really appreciate you joining us again to do another deep dive. If you've got ideas for the next one in May, let us know. Both of
Maybe
us
we'll
have a
have a
couple
co-pilot.
conferences for the next 2 weeks. So yeah, co-pilot's going to be interesting, but I want to, like, get something that we could demo at least before we just talk about it.
Imagine,
As
if you
soon as it
will, a
lights up. Yeah.
co-pilot that
So
revolutionizes the way that you work.
yeah, it's really interesting. We can talk philosophically about it, but I want to be able to show too.
Yeah,
So,
keep those
but
ideas coming. We're
yeah.
already starting to talk about the next one. As John mentioned, we'll be in
Mhm.
conferences that we can't talk about next week, and then the week after that, you're going to be
I'm gonna be at
comms
CommsV next in
be next.
Denver,
Yeah, in Denver.
the week after next. So April 25th and 26th, I'm gonna be there, talking with my friend Aaron Steele from Microsoft about devices and native Teams features for advanced event stuff. So we're going to be talking about like NDI, SDI, some of the partnerships with like Epifan and Live Arena, stuff like that. We did AI producer. We did a live stream about that. So we're going to be showing those types of things off. Aaron actually has a giveaway that he's going to be giving away in the Q&A. So if you're around Denver, can make it to Denver, um, definitely register for that. It's going to be a fun time. I've heard this is my first time going to CommsV Next, but I hear that it's amazing, and I hear that the food is really great. So I'm looking forward to that. And where are you going? Are you in a conference the week after next?
No, so I got Redmond next week, and then my
Hmm.
next one will be the beginning of June. That will be 365 EduCon in
Okay.
Washington, DC. I have a promo code, Honeycut 100. ping me and
There
I'll
you go.
make sure
Yeah.
that you get that. But if anybody is interested in an in-person event for all things Microsoft 365 and Power Platform, I do encourage you to come hang out at 365 EduCon in DC. They're also doing 365 EduCon in Seattle and in Chicago. I'm already
Yeah.
on the list for Seattle. Looking really forward to that one. That'll be in Microsoft's backyard, and
Yeah.
that's going to be in into August, I believe. And then
Okay.
Chicago will be around Halloween.
It feels like it's definitely like conference season. Where
Yep.
conferences are coming back. Daryl said, M365 conference is coming. That's the first week of May. So you might have seen a pop up in Teams that drove you crazy, that advertised it, but that is coming. That's going to be a good one in Vegas. I won't be able to get there because that'd be 3 weeks in a row. Plus, I wouldn't be able to travel there, work pay for it and stuff. There's that. Also, I saw this call for speakers for Metaverse One in September is open as well. Awesome guys that run that conference coming up. So check out Metaverse One too. But I think that's it. There's a huge calendar of stuff, but we'll see you guys in mid to late May to talk about something next time. Follow us both on Twitter if you don't already, and I'll throw up my Twitter right there. You can scan and follow me. And then in 3, 2, 1, Andy's Twitter, follow him. We'll talk about those things coming up. We'll talk about the next one of these if you want. Subscribe to the YouTube channels so you can follow along with what's going on. So awesome. Well, thanks, Andy. This was a good one. It was fun.
Yep.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great weekend.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. And turn off my microphone and mute and kill my camera before I go off. See you guys.